Hi, my name is Ricky, and I am a pilot and entrepreneur. Welcome to the Positive Rate Aviation Podcast. Here, we aim to lead others to climb to their full potential through the lens of aviation. Join us as we navigate the skies of personal development, leadership, and success, drawing inspiration from the principles that guide aviators to soar higher and further. Whether you're a seasoned aviator or someone who's reaching for new heights in life and career, prepare for a journey where every episode promises to uplift and to inspire you to take control of your own success. Thanks for watching. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Positive Rate Aviation Podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Skinner, and today I'm joined by my guest, Pam Rutecki. Pam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good, awesome. So excited to have you on, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and chat with me today.
Yeah, you should appreciate it.
We haven't got that far yet, everybody. We were just talking about the fact that Pam is a comedian, and we're gonna get more into that.
No, set the bar low. Set the bar low.
Exactly. So right out the gate, so we know what we're getting ourselves into. So this is gonna be a fun one, and you guys are definitely in for a treat. So the name of this episode is going to be Translations and Transponders, which is kind of a play on words with what Pam has got going on in her life, which we, of course, are going to get into. But yeah, before we get too deep into that, Pam, just if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your current, day job, and what you got going on.
Okay, I'm from the Boston area, New England, born and raised here. I lived in Poland for a little bit. Almost all of my secular career, I have been a world language teacher. So I've taught Spanish mostly. I've taught English. I've taught a little bit of French. And, like with public school, or I've also taught with different academies or as a tutor. So education is really my background.
Okay. Wow. So you balance that with also being a active student pilot right now, correct? Working on your private pilot certificate.
Yeah. So right now I am a student pilot, and it's a lot different than being a student in any atmosphere that I've ever either, worked in, or very different from any other academic scenario that I've experienced. So being a student pilot has been a huge challenge.
Okay. And I definitely want to talk about some of those challenges. But before we dive too deep into the aviation, let's go back to kind of how you got started in life. I know you mentioned your secular career. So how did you get started as a career educator?
It's a very non-motivational story. Sometimes people will be like, "Oh, you're a teacher, you're an educator. Oh, like you're changing the world one kid at a time." And I'm like, "Well, a lot of the times I hate kids. Like I don't have any of my own." I don't know if that's okay to say actually. But
No, you're good.
I kind of fell into it after college. I studied linguistics and language in college. I wanted to be a linguist, but there was no money in it. And I realized I needed to get a job and fast. And so I thought, maybe I could teach for a year or two until I figure out what I really want to do. And then I didn't stop. So maybe a year or two after college, I started teaching in public school, in middle school, and it remains my favorite kind of age range to this day, which a lot of people are surprised by. But I love 7th grade. It's my absolute favorite. 6th grade is great. 8th grade is horrible. So not a fan. But other than that, I have taught high school, and right now I teach K-5 in public school.
Okay. Got you. So when you when you're in middle school, for example, do you get to choose which grade that you teach, or is that kind of left up to the administration?
Yeah, it's mostly left up to administration. When you apply for a job, they'll list, we need a teacher to fill this role, and it's to
Okay.
teach, these certain sections of whatever grade or levels if you're in high school. And I've always wanted to work part-time. That's been my choice in life, is to have a certain time free to do religious volunteer work, and then to have kind of more of a healthier, what I interpreted as a healthier work-life balance. But then you obviously trade wages or a
Right.
salary to have that schedule. So I did have to move around a lot, which is okay. And I've been able to get a lot of different experiences. And like I said, I was able to live in Europe for a time. And so it has offered me a lot of flexibility.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. So, so you've been teaching now for how many years? I'm sorry. Did you say
My
how
gosh,
many?
I think like 15 maybe.
Okay. So 15 years teaching. So at what point, it's kind of leading into my next question, did you kind of know that you wanted to fly? So a question I often ask is, what was your why or your how in terms of how you got into aviation? Like what about aviation, kind of caught your attention?
Again, very like not motivational. No, it's not, some people talk about, "Oh, I knew since I was a child and I had this amazing experience with my grandfather and we were on a plane," and it's these like life altering moments. And I didn't really have one. It's going to sound maybe a little kind of like a letdown, but I was scrolling social media one evening, and I think it was at just before COVID, before the pandemic. And I saw a reel of a girl who packed up a little single engine plane and she just like filmed herself flying. And it
Mm.
blew my mind. She was young. Wish I could find the reel. I didn't even save it. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And it was because I was looking up like brands of luggage or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, man, that was so cool. I didn't really know that young women could do that. And that might sound silly, and might sound kind of ignorant, but it had never occurred to me.
Yeah.
Um, not only that young women could do that by themselves in such an atmosphere, but also that I could be one of those women. Maybe not so young anymore, but like because I mean, she could have been anywhere from 18 to 21.
Yeah.
So that blew my mind. And then for 5 years, I thought about that
Mm.
a lot. And I did some research, I looked into it, and I just said to myself, as a public school educator, I've got a good thing going. And, I don't have any background in aviation. I didn't know anybody who was doing it. I couldn't really talk to anyone. I had to I came back from South America, and I had the plane, the captain was a woman, and I chased her down the corridor
Yeah.
and was like, "Excuse me, hello." And I think she thought I was a major weirdo at first. And pretty soon out of the gate, I said to her, "I have been thinking about going to flight school, and I would love to talk to you. Do you have a minute?" And she was like, "You can walk with me, and I will tell you everything I can while I, catch my next flight," or wherever she was going. And she
Mm.
was absolutely lovely. It was a Delta flight. She was a Delta pilot, is still a Delta pilot. And she made it seem like it was something I absolutely could do. She was so supportive. She gave me her contact information. It was amazing. She said, just in that 5-minute conversation, she made it seem really possible. You
Mhm.
can do this. So about 6 months after that, I stopped trying to talk myself out of it and just said,
Yeah.
I got to take a discovery flight just to see
Mhm.
if I hate it. If I hate it, I'll just never do it. That's kind of the type of person I am. I don't know if you are. I don't know how you feel about taking risks.
Um, I would say, I mean, I'm pretty risk averse. Well, I think it just depends on what it is, really. And what stage of life that I'm in. But when it comes to aviation specifically, kind of like you, right? Maybe got started on this a little bit later in life. Not calling you old or anything like that, but just we're not that 18 to 22 like you talked about earlier, right? So, um, I would say that was somewhat risky. Getting into something like this, taking on that, as you probably know very well right now, that financial, burden, and time and everything like that. So, um, yeah, I guess that's the long version of saying that the older I get, I would say I'm probably a lot less likely to take risks. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
And I think that's a common and very understandable perspective. I have always been somebody who I want to I want to say I at least tried it,
Right.
no matter what it is. I was the first in my family to graduate college, the first to become bilingual, the first to travel solo, the first to travel to South America. Um, I've done a lot of things first, and not because I needed to make a statement or not because I felt like I needed to blaze a trail, but just because I thought, why, why, why wouldn't I? Why can't I? Who's saying I couldn't do something like that? So when aviation became an industry in which I could participate in theory, that's all it was. It was more just the introduction of it. It was something I had never thought of before. And then once the seed was planted, it was like,
Hmm.
it like took root and then it, just it would not go away. So I need to try the thing. If I fail at the thing, I'm okay with that. I guess
Hmm.
I'm not really embarrassed by failure that much. I guess I just don't. If someone's like, "Oh, but you tried it and I guess I don't care about that. I think some people
Okay.
might. Um, so I didn't see a lot of that affecting my choice to pursue flight school. It was more, was it cost prohibitive,
Right.
which it largely is.
Yeah.
Um, you have to find the right flight school, you have to find a schedule that works for you. Um, there were other considerations, how far do you want to take it? How difficult is it going to be? When you're a world language teacher, I mean, a lot of aviation comes from French,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, but that didn't really help me as much as
Yeah.
I was hoping it would, to be
Yeah.
honest. And then it's like Bernoulli. I don't know. Is he Italian? I'm not even sure.
I'm
I
not
don't.
sure what his background is. I just know
So
that I just had to learn his principle. That's all I know.
yeah, exactly. And then, something that was fascinating to me was in the PHAC, which is excellent, of course. And everybody will tell you, oh, gotta make sure to read the PHAC, 5 million times, which I haven't read the whole thing. But in the first chapter, it talks about how a lot of the maybe like a lot of the basics came from China, and
Hmm.
um, they were flying kites, and that was fascinating. So there's a lot of the aviation field, aerodynamics, things that are not natural, and yet there is a lot of crossover when it comes to language learning, multilingualism,
Hmm.
um, you know, diversity across cultural connections, things like that, and that really appealed to me. So I thought, I wanna pursue this.
That's amazing. One thing you said that I actually want to go back and touch on really quickly, if I may, because I think it's important, is you
I
mentioned
will allow
how
it.
just one, just at least give me this one. So you mentioned failure, right? You're not particularly afraid of it or embarrassed by failure, which I think is huge. I think that's important, and I'm really glad you said that. But my question with that is that something, at least for you, is that kind of just innately in you? Do you think, were you born with that? Was that like a trait that you had to learn over time, maybe through maturity, or is that kind of just how you've always been?
I think there it's probably both. I think because everyone, I guess, is kind of like, to use your term, maybe a little risk averse as we grow up as children. We have to evaluate risk around, I don't know, like walking, take, rollerblade, learning something new. And so, if I fall, will I get hurt? Things like that as you grow up. And then um, I think it was more with bigger decisions as I became like in my late teens. My dad always said, if you don't ask, the answer is definitely no.
No. Yep.
And that kind of taught me, like, well, why don't you just ask? Just ask, and
Hmm.
if somebody can't do something for you, or if they're not, you can't do the thing, then okay, well, at least you asked. So I think in a larger way, I started applying that to other areas of my life. Um, I literally did not know what I was going to do as a senior in high school. My parents had my brother a lot when I was in middle school. And so a lot of their attention was
Hmm.
on him, as it should have been. And
Right.
so they kind of let me make my own choices. I have two older sisters and they both homeschooled. So it was a little different path than mine. And so I was already primed, I guess, to um, be the first one to do certain things. And then you realize, oh, like if I want to do anything, nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's going to check if I
Hmm.
do my homework. Nobody's going to, you know, like arrange that job for you or apply for you. Nobody's going to like buy an airplane ticket to a place that they've never been for you on your behalf. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that you kind of just go, well, why couldn't I do it? I guess I'll just do it.
Hmm. Yeah, man. That's everything you're describing is kind of exactly the kind of the thought process or the thoughts that I often find myself having. And yeah, I think that was huge, man. Like I said, really important to highlight that. That's awesome. Um so how do you balance your role as a language, specifically a language educator, with your flight training, your path to getting your private right now?
How do I balance it?
Yeah.
It's really hard because I when I'm at work, my mind is completely absorbed in my job. I tried to do the thing where like I study over my lunch break or something. It doesn't work. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work for me. Um, and I think I'll give you maybe a quick example. This week, I I teach one third grade class in which there's a child who is new to the country, and she is from a country that has been having a lot of political problems. And but she speaks native. She's a native Spanish speaker. Her family speaks Spanish. So she's new to the school system this year. She's new to me this year. And we were doing an activity where we were telling a story about a cat, and it's a really cute story. The kids really like it. And I gave every kid a strip of paper with a Spanish sentence on it, and they were supposed to paste it on a picture, and we would tell the story together. And she pasted hers upside down. And I thought that's just, it was a careless mistake, which is fine. And so I had all the kids read their sentence aloud, and she mostly just summarized her picture instead of reading the sentence. So I thought she didn't understand the instructions. Come to find out, she couldn't read. And
Mhm.
she's 9 years old, going on 10.
Wow.
And she doesn't know her Spanish letters. She doesn't know the sounds, let alone English. I mean, we're not even talking about English. Um,
Right.
Lovely child. She doesn't know the names of the kids in her class. I mean, this is November. We've been in school for 10 weeks.
Mhm.
Um, and my heart went out to her because it's not for lack of trying. She's not poorly behaved. I mean, there's just so much going on with this student. And
Yeah.
so when you're in a job not every child is like that, of course.
Yeah.
But it occupies a lot of your brain space. And I think it's really important in my job to try to guide the kids on how to be global citizens, because that's aviation, right? So we have English is the language of aviation, and I
Yeah.
understand that. Um, we have to know that most of the world may be learning English as a second, third, fourth language.
Right.
Um, and aviation English, while standardized, I mean, that's good. But there are other languages to speak, and other, um, lands and cultures and traditions to be experienced.
Yeah.
So I try really hard to focus on that, and all of that takes a lot of work. And so when I try to balance that, and then I go, okay, so let's talk about stall speed, and you have to memorize them all, and you need to know, what is a tomato flames and the inspections and stuff. It's just, it doesn't immediately click
It's hard
because
to turn that switch on and off.
Mhm,
Yeah.
exactly, and it doesn't feel extremely applicable to the world in front of me because
Mm.
I'm inserting myself into a world that I haven't previously belonged to.
Hmm.
And I kind of see the irony because here I am trying to teach children to accept and try to belong to an atmosphere where in the future they may not previously have belonged to.
Wow. That's interesting.
So,
Yeah. Wow.
um, it's been really difficult. You have to kind of accept, like there's a lot of things I've had to accept because aviation is not aviation is, in my experience, a Part 61 school that I love a lot, and has a really good reputation. The instructors are not career instructors. They are people who want to be pilots. They're not
Right.
people who want to be educators. So there's a lot of things that happen in my training that I'm like, I just pedagogically don't agree with that. I don't agree with why we need to know certain things at certain times in our flight training for this certification. Or there's a lot of things that I've kind of felt, the first time I was shown what a stall was.
Yeah.
It's like my instructor, who I think is the best guy ever, he's a complete genius. I mean, he's an industrial engineer, and he has put up with a lot of my crap, that's for sure. Who He's also bilingual, and
Okay.
also somebody who has done a lot of firsts and has um, is bicultural as well. He's Chinese. He didn't realize that the way that he taught stalls to somebody like me should maybe be a little different than somebody
Hmm.
who has more of a background. But he learned that lesson real quick after
So
that
what do
first
you,
stall.
so can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So he explained verbally what a stall was, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." And
Yeah.
so, we're at like I don't know, like 3,500 feet or something, and the he pulls the power for power off stall, and I remember the left wing tipped. And it wasn't that it tipped a lot, but I didn't expect it. And so I thought we were going to fall out of the sky. So I immediately screamed his name and grabbed onto him.
Oh, wow.
And he thankfully maintained complete control of the aircraft and didn't laugh right in my face. And he just kept saying, "That what a gentle stall. That was a very smooth stall." And he did not mention the fact that I completely freaked out. um, yeah, I will never forget that, and I don't think he ever will.
The good thing, you know what the good thing about that is? You actually did the most important thing, or at least the first step, without even realizing it was essentially you just released the back pressure, which is really what you want to do. So when
Huh?
you let go and when you let go and bear hug them, really, there's step one right there.
Okay, hold on. He was just demonstrating the stall. I was not even doing it,
Oh, oh, shoot. Okay.
and I still
So
had that reaction.
got you.
I did
Okay.
not know. I thought, in my mind, I've seen videos of spins. I didn't know enough to realize that it wasn't going to result in a spin.
Spin. Right.
So of course, he explained it to me, but you don't really, it did not compute at that time.
Right.
Um, and so, that was a learning experience for both of us.
Yeah.
And I mean, to his credit, he absolutely was like, you know what, maybe I should rethink how I do this. And he did. And, I mean, he's tried so hard to, and so have the other instructors too. I work with another instructor who, when he taught me weather, he would use like pictorial illustrations. He's
Hmm.
like, and it works. That's a thing. Like, it sounds like, something for a kid, but okay, so a cold front is a woman walking down the street in heels, and it's a busy street, and she's just like got an appointment to go to, and a warm front is just a little old man, and he's just handing out candy, and he like,
Yeah.
but it works for me. That's the thing, because I mean, I like to look at the world in that way.
Hmm.
Um, and I like to associate, I don't know, like weather. I've never enjoyed it. It's not, I mean, I look out the window and I go, oh, okay, that's as much weather as I
Yeah.
used to do before I
Mm.
started flying. So,
Right. Right.
um,
And you'll be surprised, and maybe you will be, like, as you go further along in your flight training, like how much you have a deeper, or you will gain a deeper understanding for certain topics, like weather, for example. Like, what I mean, so I'll give you an example. I didn't full transparency. I didn't fully understand um pressure systems to a level that I really should have until fairly recently, until I was actually, I would say, finishing up like my instrument rating. Even more so during commercial, I think I really learned it. But I had a friend that I reached out to. She's actually she's a flight instructor for helicopters, and I've known her for a long time. And she was actually one of my first episodes on this podcast. Shout out Angela. But
I saw
she
that. Thanks,
did
Ed.
you see that? Yeah, Angela. I'm telling you, like, and I've told her this, so she'll probably love that I'm talking about this again publicly. But there was a method that she gave me that really helped me grasp the concept of um, like high pressure versus low pressure, and kind of how that works. So she used an analogy of basically hanging a picture on a wall. It took her doing this for me to be like, wow, I got it. So think of like when you hang up a picture frame on a wall, right? You know, what's the like basically what's the way that you would attach it to the wall? You're gonna take a screwdriver and push down and turn the screwdriver clockwise. That's what's going to stabilize. That's what's going to stabilize that picture frame on the wall. And if you want to take it off, you're going to twist counterclockwise and lift up. Now it's unstable on the wall. Went through my entire private pilot training, and about halfway through instrument, I mean, obviously, I guess I learned enough to get through the check ride, but I didn't fully understand. This is just one example, but something at that level, like you said, which might to some be elementary, right? But it made it click, and I was like, "Wow, I get it now."
So,
And since then, I got it.
did it click how to hang a picture? Because I'm not trying to be like, wait, how do you hang a picture? Crap.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm still not too clear on that. I don't
because
even know how I got this thing up behind me. Like, that's just ignore that. That's AI.
now I've learned two things: how to hang a picture and pressure
And
systems.
pressure systems. There you go.
But I think what you're relating, which I really appreciate, and something that I've talked at length about, is I wish that I heard more about the things people didn't understand right away,
Hmm.
or how long it took someone to master something, because the sometimes when I don't know, social media or the way that people talk, the books that you're supposed to read, I mean, the million of them, oh, make sure you read the POH, oh, but you also have to read the
Yeah,
BHAC, oh, and don't forget the airplane
yeah,
flying handbook, and oh, and I have books from this, and make sure you read this, and I've sent you a packet and look at it. It's just the volume of information is overwhelming.
it is.
And so to hear that someone is saying, I guess I'll, to be candid, relatively recently, that is refreshing to me. That is the stuff I want to hear, because there are a lot of things that I'm grasping, and I am in a group on social media of other students and pilots, and a lot of the times people will post anonymously because of embarrassment, thinking, I feel like I'm taking so long and I'm so behind, and everyone else is better than me, and everyone's going faster than me, and everyone's getting it easier than I am. And
Hmm.
I feel like, but if we have so many people saying that, is like, what is the standard? Isn't it just about what's safe and
Yeah,
what it
yes,
takes for you to succeed? So I wish that there was more transparency around, maybe not. completely mastering a certain skill or concept as
Yeah,
soon as you were supposed to have
right.
mastered it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to you've probably heard this as you're nearing your check ride, right? But that private pilot license or certificate, right? It truly is a license to learn. Like there's no way take comfort in knowing that there is no possible way that you will know everything about weather or systems, airspace. You can't know all of that in I think the national average right now is like 60 to like 85 hours or something like that. Even if you go beyond that, let's say you get your private at 100 hours, right? Um even that like the further you go in aviation, the more you become like and just aware of how much you don't know. And when I look back on it, man, it's like I was actually talking to Angela again about this not too long ago. It's like, I can't believe I took, friends and family flying when I did, thinking like right after I got my private, because it became aware, like obvious to me how much I didn't know. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But you I've had people say like, you've got two cups, right? Your experience versus luck. And you want to pour as much into that experience as you can before, that cup of luck, runs out. Obviously what we do is in flying, I mean, there is some risk, right? Just inherently, like there's some risk. What we do, like flying, metal machines through the air is not natural. And machines, as we know, fail. But that's where that preparation comes in, right? To be as prepared as you possibly can when things don't go according to plan. Um, but no, you're on the right track. And what you're feeling, trust me, you're not thinking or feeling, or anyone that's in that group that you mentioned, who may see this, you're not feeling or thinking anything that any of us who maybe happened to just come through a little bit before you didn't also think or feel. Um,
Yeah.
like I'm in check ride prep mode right now myself. I mean, I told you that I've got my check ride next Monday, so not this coming Monday, but the following on the 25th for my multi-engine. And man, like it's stressful, trying to learn these systems, and
You're gonna
it's a
kill it.
lot, and I'm like, man, how did you guys like do this, But it's just being able to sit down and really just, lock in and study. And it's really all how bad do you want it? You know what I mean? It's really all aviation kind of comes down to is really how bad you want it. I don't think most of what we do is not incredibly, in my opinion, I don't think it's incredibly difficult, but it is just a lot of information. There's times where you might feel like excuse me, where you feel like you're, drinking from a fire hose, right? But but being able to just kind of like, okay, let me just focus on this. We all find our ways that we study. But like for me, like I'm just kind of like, okay, I have to kind of like break things up. I can't just do everything at once. Today, I'm solely going to focus on airspace. I'm going to know everything about Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and so on. Like that is my focus today. Tomorrow, but tomorrow I'll focus on weather. But before I go over weather, I'm going to recap everything I already soaked up about airspace before moving on to that, to where it just, you know what I mean? To where I can, and some people might say that this isn't the right way of doing it, but I mean, a lot of what you're doing, at least early on, is rote memorization, right? But I mean, hey, that's at least giving you some kind of foundation to go off of. And then you can take that, what you've learned in terms of rote memorization and then apply it, um, or moving on to application. A lot of aviation is scenario based.
Mhm.
So, you want to be able to take that and then learn how to, and I think that's where I struggle too. That's always kind of been a weaker area for me. Again, more transparency. Rote memorization was never really a big problem for me. It was more so the scenarios and applications. Hey, if you're flying here and you're at this altitude and this happens, what are you going to do? That's where I was more like, I wasn't ready for that, you
Right.
know?
ADM, right? So,
But yeah, exactly. But it comes with experience. It's just time, man,
mhm.
like anything else, the more you do it, it gets easier.
And I think that it also is something that can be taught, which I think is refreshing to learn. I think chapter 2 in the PHAC talks about ADM, right? But I think also something you talked about, the national average of hours. I think you were referring to like how long it takes somebody, how many hours it takes them to
To get a
um,
private.
get their private pilot license. And that's
Yep.
something that I really would love to like never hear because I think it messes with our head. Like it's a statistic like anything else. I mean, if people, there's a minimum, right?
Yeah.
for a reason.
Hmm.
I wish that that minimum could be bumped out or something like that because I think that would make for better pilots. I think that it would also remove this sort of maybe implied
Stigma.
expectation. Like if you don't get it within the national average, then there's something deficient with you.
Hmm.
I wish, I mean, I really, that's why, in Massachusetts, we've recently had a lot of discussion about standardized testing. We have a standardized test that has just been voted out that, students are no longer required to pass a certain standardized test to progress in their education. And I think that something like that, where you say something across the board, I mean, how many people start flight training and don't finish? And it
Yeah,
makes
I
me
think.
wonder how many of those people would have continued but thought, oh, I'm not getting it in 60 to 80 hours, so I guess I should just stop.
Mm,
I think about that a lot. How many
yeah,
people were saying, this isn't coming easily to me, but it's coming easily to, all these other people because that's what I'm being told. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people taking check rides at so many hours, and that's
yeah,
obviously the standard. And, so now I'm comparing that person to me and my experience. And I
yeah,
wonder if we could, I don't know, reframe it. I don't know how we could, but I know that that has definitely messed with my thinking about my training. Oh, is
yeah,
this not for me? Because you were talking about, or 100 hours. I'm like, dude, I have blown past 100 hours and I thought I was going to get it in 55. I was like,
yeah.
I'll get it in 55
S-
hours.
So let me just, put this disclaimer. Like I brought only reason why I brought that up is um as far as like the national average is because with the minimum being, I guess, what is it, 35 for 141
40?
and then 40 for 61.
Hmm.
Um Basically just to say, hey, like we all are on a different journey, right? And heck, even if it takes you 200 hours, what does they say? The biggest thief of joy is comparison.
That's true.
you
Yes.
know so with that, I try to keep that in mind. Everybody's situation is different, whether it be financial, family situation, juggling full-time jobs with kids, like, it so I mean, it really doesn't matter, man. Anyone who's hearing this, like, just know we are all on our own journeys, and if you put in the work and you put in the time, and you are a solid person and you've got people around you that are willing to help, you will get there. It's not a matter of, if, it's only a matter of when. So even if you've blown past that, man, it doesn't matter. That's not something that they ask you when you're interviewing at an airline. I've interviewed for uh and we can, not to get too far off topic, but so a lot of these airlines, they have cadet programs for a lot of these like regional airlines. So I've interviewed with two different airlines now. And during both interviews, at no point did they ask me how many hours I had when I got my
Hmm.
private. That never came up. So if that
Right.
can, put anyone's mind at ease, like, take that and run with it.
I think it absolutely will. I know I have my eye on a cadet program as well.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm just
Hmm.
manifesting, guys. I'm manifesting.
So I actually just applied to become an ambassador for one. I'm wondering if it's the same one that I'm a part of. Where are they based out of?
Okay. I'm like, are we going to say it on three and become best friends? No.
I don't think there's anything that says I can't say it. So the first one I applied for and was accepted into is Republic Airways.
And you got accepted?
I did, yeah, yeah. I was fortunate enough to get accepted. So yeah, I've been with their cadet program for uh maybe about 6 months.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's
so yeah,
really
interview with them.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was. I encourage anyone, like, when you get your private, and everyone is a little bit different. You have to look at their, respective, minimum qualifications. But I think for a lot of them, I think they require, for most of them, it's like you need your private and instrument rating, right? But when you get that, I highly encourage it because you get priority in terms of class dates and hiring. And the good thing about Republic, shameless plug for them, is if you're accepted into their cadet program, it also comes with a CJO as a first officer. So I don't have to interview again. I don't. So they count the cadet interview as your first officer interview as well. So they do. It's a two-part interview. So you'll sit down with a person from HR, and they'll ask you, you go through and answer HR related questions, and then they'll actually bring a captain who's been with the company for however long, and they'll basically have you brief an instrument approach plate and kind of, hey, if this happened, like what would you do in this situation? Which is why they want you to have that instrument rating, right? So you can answer those questions. But but for the most part, pretty low threat. I mean, they keep it to the level of where you are. They're going to have all your information as far as, hours and your experience and things like that. But yeah, so I interviewed with them and got accepted, and also recently just interviewed with Allegiant as well, and just waiting to hear back from them. So
Are they based out of Tennessee?
Allegiant, they are based out of Vegas, actually.
Oh, Vegas. So
Hmm.
you have some awesome options. That's
Yeah,
pretty
I mean, hopefully, man, and that's really what it's about, is just making,
Mhm.
giving yourself as many options as possible.
Right.
But like I said, I'm waiting to hear back from Republic on whether or not I've got this ambassador position, which is kind of going to give me a little bit more reach in terms of recruitment and getting people to also join the program. So more to come on that. Definitely more to come on that.
Oh
But
my goodness. Pins and
yeah,
needles. We're on pins
yeah,
and needles.
seriously.
Yes.
Um,
So I was looking at a program based out of Seattle because they only require a PPL at minimum. But
okay,
let's see, the most recent deadline was the end of September, and I do not have my license. So I'm waiting for the time when I can apply to that program.
okay,
I also applied to Frontier last January, but the I sent in like a video interview. I don't
okay.
think it went that well.
Really? Okay.
You record yourself.
Allegiant
And
was the same way.
yeah, the next day I got an email that was like, "We're not accepting your application," or something like that. I was like, "Oh no."
Well,
Um,
it might not just be you, because I thought that Frontier, I thought they kind of like at least temporarily kind of shut that down
they
because they
did
had such a
actually.
huge influx of, yeah.
So that's how I'm interpreting it. I'm like, "Yeah, no, the company, it's not me they're rejecting." It,
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't your insane video interview because I was like cracking, I'm like talking like the person's there. I'm making myself laugh by myself. I'm
They're like, "Oh,
recording
this girl's
myself.
nuts."
I'm like, she's insane.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's why I didn't get it.
We'll go with
That's what I'm
that.
telling myself.
Yeah, we'll go with that. All right, so let's kind of keep this rolling a little bit. Let's see here. So I know you kind of talked about weather a little bit, but what would you say up until this point has been the easiest, and also what has been the most challenging in your journey for you up until this point?
Um, while I would say the concepts are they do not come naturally to me, maneuvering in an aircraft in a 3D space, not natural to me, not natural to a lot of people, but a
Right.
lot of pilots, social media pilots that I see, oh, I came so natural, which is awesome for them. And I think that's very valid. And um, there are people like that, and there's no shame. Just nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's just not my experience. Honestly, I've had a few experiences where the feeling is this is how we do it because this is how we do it. Um, and like answering a mock oral question with my instructor. With him, he's a very sympathetic listener. He's worked with me for a long time and he wants to see me succeed. And so if I say something that's not quite right, he might, repeat it back to me and kind of say, like, if this is what you mean, then that's right, or something like that. But almost like how exact aviation has to be, instead of saying, I don't know, like instead of saying, I don't know, like calm air, saying something else. Like the words that I'm using
Oh,
are
I got you. Yeah.
are
You had to use
incorrect,
specific terminology.
specific terminology. And so a lot of that is because the way that I am as an educator in a language class is I go, you don't need the exact word. There are thousands of words. Use other ones. Like
Right.
explain your point. You don't need one specific word. You can
Hmm.
still communicate. That's why a lot of times people will say that their personality changes between languages because when you can't nail a specific word or idea, you need to develop the skill of talking around something. And so maybe the way that you get used to expressing yourself in a language is going to be a little different than in your native tongue or one that you know really well, you're fluent in. So,
Right.
um, and you have to be willing to make mistakes when you're learning language. And in aviation, there's not a lot of room for error.
Right.
Um, I mean, people will say like, "Oh, but there really isn't,
Hmm.
and there shouldn't be. I mean, there's safety
Right.
regulations for a reason, and like you said, aviation, you take on risk when you get in an aircraft. Um, I guess it's just the exactness of
Hmm.
aviation. I am not used to that.
Right.
I'm kind of, I don't know if you can tell, more of a free spirit. Somebody who, like I said,
Maybe.
yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that's coming through, but I feel like there's a lot that I say to the kids all the time. They're like, "Oh, does spelling count?" No, spelling doesn't count. Get close. Sound it out. If you're missing, it doesn't matter to me. Are you
Yeah.
communicating? Are you trying your best? Are you using the strategies that I've given you? Whereas in aviation, it's like, I want you to say this. I want
Hmm.
you to say this word. Um, and so I'm not really used to that.
Okay. But you know that that's in place to really to protect you, right?
Yeah,
Because
like
obviously
like I
everything
was
is
saying,
recorded.
yeah, aviation English, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are certain ways to say things. And, if you're talking to a controlled airport and the tower, you're expecting to hear something a certain way. And so, even
Right.
me, if I hear something that's not how I'm used to hearing it, then I get nervous. So,
Hmm.
so I understand it, but it's just not how what I'm primed to do.
Okay. Yeah. So basically you to answer that you would say that maybe the specific communication piece has been the biggest hurdle or struggle you would say in
I mean,
aviation?
communication, but it's also like, okay, explain to me how um I don't know, explain the fuel system to me.
Okay.
Explain Bernoulli's principle, explain how lift works, explain.
Right.
And so it's like I'll try to give a definition for any one of those things. And I'm hearing back from really like amazing pilots who care too. That's the thing. It's not that they're trying to trick me.
Right.
I don't think. Pilots who I've done mock orals with several pilots at my flight school because I want the practice. And so I
Hmm.
keep booking those and trying to get them. And um, a lot of times, if it's the answer they don't expect to hear, they want you to succeed. So they go, I want you to say it this way. I want you to say it like this because that's how I learned it. And the guy before me and the guy
Hmm.
around you. And, it is usually another guy. So they want you to succeed in the way that they know how to succeed. And I guess my whole philosophy is that there are so many ways to succeed, but in aviation, it doesn't really feel like that.
Doesn't really yeah. Yeah, welcome to dealing with a federal agency.
Why? I'm a public school teacher, so it's like
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um okay. So you kind of answered one of my next questions. So you said you're at a 61 part 61 school. So are you training out of an uncontrolled airport?
No, it's controlled.
So it is controlled. Okay. So you're not like a full blown 61 cowboy or cowgirl. You get but
I I mean, yeah, like I think I'm really fortunate to have this experience because I think if I didn't learn this way, I'd be very nervous.
hmm.
What's the right way and what do I say? And I have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to write out a radio script because I was too nervous to get the words out. And
Hmm.
so actually on my Instagram, I have it linked on my in my profile because I was like, this I used it this morning. I've used it for over a year, over 100 hours. It's just a script for taxis, script for takeoff, for landing, and for the landing taxi because I just was it's not intuitive to me. So I really
Yeah.
wanted it written out and clearly delineated.
Okay. Isn't it interesting how, and you're like me, you started out training at a, controlled airport, but when you have to venture out to those uncontrolled fields, right? That communication is a whole different animal. But on the flip side of that, when they come to where we are, where there's a towered, airport, they're like, oh my God, I actually have to talk to ATC. It's just funny, like that perspective, you know what I mean? How
It's
that
true.
changes.
It's
Yeah.
true. I did my my cross country to a non-towered airport and there were two planes in the it was only three of us, but there were
Hmm.
two planes in the pattern and I was so nervous. I was trying to listen to what they were saying and I was trying to focus on, aviate, navigate, communicate, and so I was trying to
Right.
focus on what I was doing and so I was missing some of what they said. So eventually I just got on the radio or the frequency and I said, I don't know where you guys are, but this is where I am. So
Hey, that's perfect though, you know?
they just started talking to each other. I was like, I'm a student pilot. And I felt I did not want to do that because I knew my instructor was listening. And I was like, oh, he's going to be so horrified. But um, they just started, they didn't even acknowledge it. They just started talking to each other. And one of them was like, all right, I'm going to go on an extended downwind. And the other one was like, all right, I'm going to do a teardrop and then, come back in on the 45, whatever they said. But
Yeah,
we got her done. So
there you go. See, and I would say if I was one of those other pilots, I would appreciate that because a lot of people just wouldn't have said anything, right? And that's the worst. One of the worst things you can do is if you don't know where someone is, or if you don't know where you are yourself, to not say that or not, communicate that is dangerous. So,
it's true.
um, no, I would definitely appreciate that. Um, okay, so 61. So you kind of talked about that. So do any of your students, are they aware that you fly?
I started talking about it.
Really? Okay.
So I was super pumped to show them pictures and talk about some of my experiences. A lot of
Heck
them,
yeah.
it's interesting. They kind of like stare at the screen because I'll put it up on the whiteboard. We have
Yeah.
projectors in class and they're like, what are you doing? I kind of don't get it. And I think it's really important to me that I discuss what I want to do because to my young girls, to my students, all of my students, but to my black and brown boys and girls, um, to these children who might be more like me, who don't realize that aviation is something that is open to them. I think it's really important for them to be exposed to it as early as possible. And because I teach at a K to 5 school, I have an advantage where I can, start doing that. I'm in the process of
Hmm.
trying to get some of the pilots that I know to come to school and do a little presentation and talk with the kids and maybe do some interactive activities. Women in Aviation, the Boston chapter, has been really good. We did a Girls in Aviation Day. I got some great ideas from
Okay.
doing that and saw, how to simulate more of the aviation environment. And I think it's something that would be really amazing to introduce to more elementary schools, especially in my area. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if I just don't know. Are you out there? Like, tell me, give me a shout out if you
Yeah.
guys are out there and you're like, yeah, we're trying to do it too. So, um, I mean, we have trade schools in high school, but I don't know of any that have an aviation program. So, like I said, I think it's really important to start my students thinking about it at a young age because then they can talk to their parents and maybe their parents, it will, you know, dawn on them, oh, my child could be interested in this and then they could pursue it.
Right.
Um, if they don't know it exists, then how
Yeah.
will they
Exposure
do
is
it?
exposure is like a big thing, man. A lot of kids that they could end up doing very well and succeeding. They don't even know that that's viable option for them. Kind of like what you mentioned in the beginning when you saw the girl post the reel on IG. You said it admittedly, you were like, I didn't even know that was a possibility for a young girl, let alone myself, right? So there, you got that exposure, and here we are, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the beauty of it, man. Is it really brings people together from everywhere. And what I like about it too is it's a level, for the most part, it's a level playing field. No matter who you are, who your family is, um, your socio, economic status, it's kind of irrelevant, until you get your minimum hours and ratings, you can't do it. Right. And, we all, for the most part, have the same standards and training that we have to, abide by to get where we want to be, which is why it kills me. Like, and I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but it kills me like with the conversations that are being had. And I don't know if you've seen it on social media with in terms of like DIY in aviation. Um, people or not DIY,
No.
what is it? DEI. I'm sorry.
Oh, diversity, equity, and
Diversity.
inclusion.
Yeah, I don't know why I
Mhm.
said DIY. Let's do it yourself.
I mean,
Um,
there are concerns with that too, though. Granted.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. But that's a big thing right now, man. Is people are questioning whether or not people from certain demographic backgrounds are actually qualified to be, airline pilots. There are people that are showing up at airports and getting on aircraft, and they might see someone that's sitting in the flight deck that doesn't look like them, and they're automatically questioning of whether or not they were actually supposed to be there or if they were just a DEI hire, which is completely ridiculous in my opinion. Because as you know, in your time in aviation and me in my time, again, we all have to do this. We all have to meet the same standard and requirement, use all the same terminology, phraseology. I had to do stalls just like you do. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
I had to do stalls and short field, soft field landings and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think,
yeah,
like, to your point, being a woman in aviation, I every time I see a woman at my flight school, I am like, I have to introduce myself. I have to meet her. I become obsessed. I'm like the instructors. I'm like, who is that? Can you introduce me? Or I just
yeah,
introduce myself. They're like, oh
yeah,
my gosh, here she goes again. Because there aren't many of us. And I have to say, my flight school has been so incredibly welcoming. All of the men that I have been working with are respectful and lovely and fun and want to see me succeed. I think want to see everyone succeed. I have not had personally at my flight school any negative experiences that I could really talk about. I mean, I've observed others. I've interacted with people on social media that have it's been an unfortunate interaction, but I have had a really nice experience where I have felt, um, like I said, that the men around me at the flight school want to see me succeed, but it is something of a man's world there, and
yeah,
I'm trying to navigate my way while still being myself. So that's something that I'm trying to reconcile as well.
yeah. Okay. Um, so let's switch gears a little bit. And you briefly mentioned it in the beginning that you do outside of aviation, because I kind of like to highlight the whole person concept, if you will, right? Aviation is great, but the kind of what the terms that I like to go by here at Positive Rate is leading others to climb to their full potential through the lens of aviation. So kind of stepping outside of aviation. You mentioned you're involved with some religious type of volunteer work. Would you be willing to kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and so that has been a hallmark of my life for as long as I've made a dedication to be a member of this organization. Um, and I don't just kind of some I don't know if you know much about Jehovah's Witnesses, but we are a
No.
Christian religion. We believe in one God. We believe his name is Jehovah. He has a son, Jesus, who's important to our salvation. And we believe that the Bible is kind of like a handbook for living. and that it has a theme that God will eventually bring a government to the earth, and the earth will be a beautiful paradise, much like maybe anybody would dream about a paradise
Hmm.
being. A lot of people go to the Caribbean and they go, oh, it's like a tropical paradise.
Yeah.
What they mean is it's problem free, it's beautiful, they feel content. Maybe they're with loved ones, maybe they're not. Maybe they're, relaxing by themselves, reading a book, whatever is something that appeals to you is something that would be held out in that future. And we feel that the Bible talks about this at length. And so when we are involved in Bible study, we're forever students of the Bible. We could never know everything there is to know
Right.
about a divine being or an intelligent designer. And so we like to share that with people. A lot of people have their own religion, that's fine, or aren't interested in hearing our message at this time in their life, and that's okay. But I do think that it's important. If you think it's like with aviation, being a global citizen, anything like a hope for the future. If you have something that brings you joy, happiness, contentment, I wouldn't feel right not sharing it.
Mm.
And it's up to someone else to say, that's not really what I want at this time. But a lot of what I see in aviation too is design. I mean, aerodynamics. It's incredible. The physics, the like
Yeah.
horizontal component of lift, and like just these insane concepts of how humans have merely discovered and embarked on the idea of flight. And yet, I mean, birds, you can't really watch a bird and not marvel at
Right.
how amazing they are, how quiet an owl is through the night, a kingfisher, how they fish and the shape of their beak and how fast they are, or um, there's just a hummingbird, how gorgeous and how amazing the shape of their wings, the movement of their wings. um, there's a lot that I see when you study aviation that leads me to the conclusion that there had to be an intelligent designer. And maybe I differ from the next person on the identity of that designer, but
Right.
I think to me and my brain, my deductive powers, it seems like it's undeniable that someone designed what we're seeing.
Right. Absolutely. No, 100%. No, I definitely agree with you on that. So your involvement essentially with that, or the volunteer work that you do, are you hosting events, or are you kind of, is it community outreach? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, there's community outreach, there's individual Bible study. We hold events maybe 3 times a year locally that are like 1 or 2 day, 3 day seminars. Um, I had been involved in the worldwide construction of places of worship. We call them kingdom halls. Some people call their
Yeah.
places of worship like a church or a temple, synagogue. Um, and there's what's interesting to me also about Jehovah's Witnesses is that it's a global religion. People from all walks of life and people who have a vast array of skills. And it's really exciting to be a part of something like that. Because I have an education background, I worked a lot with training and
Okay.
in the construction process. But there is translation, which is fascinating to me. There's, writing of texts. There's public relations. There's audio, visual services, which are pretty cool.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot that our organization does to try to benefit our fellow man through the lens of our belief system.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And I think it's great that, you are, you're kind of doing what if you are a believer, you're kind of doing what you're charged to do, which is to spread that and not shy away from it. Right.
Right.
And aviation. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's really, we're trying to imitate Jesus and do the work that
Right.
Jesus did, which is talk about that theme of the Holy Scriptures, which is God's kingdom.
Right. And aviation is a wonderful vehicle to use to do that with the, national, if not global reach that you have with, aviation being the vehicle to do that. So,
And there
yeah,
are plenty of people who are in love with aviation who don't come to the same conclusion as I do, that there's an intelligent designer. And
right.
that's okay. I think that it makes me a little bit sad. Maybe I feel like maybe a purpose sort of falls short in that way. But there are some really educated and skilled pilots that I've learned from, that I've personally met or not, who still can marvel at aviation and the amazing things that, the design of the aircraft, or the organizations, how it brings people together. And even this summer, what is, not Sun and Fun, the other one? What's the other?
Oshkosh.
Oshkosh. Yes.
Yeah.
I had no idea. This was my first kind of year learning about Oshkosh. I
Right.
had no idea it was as massive as it was, but it was like it.
Wait, you
I
were
mean,
there?
I wasn't there, but I saw
Oh,
on social media. I was like, I had no idea it was like this.
yeah.
People
I've
from
been trying to get out there
everywhere.
for
Yes.
years, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going next year. I've told everyone, I'm like, I'm 100% going to be there next year. So
Yeah. I'm
if
going
you're
too.
there, all right, there we go. Well, shoot.
Going,
Uh,
everybody.
yeah. We're taking this show on the road.
That's right.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So what else are you working on right now? Anything, any projects, organizations outside of, what you just spoke on? Anything else you're working on that you care to talk about? Any shameless plugs?
Oh, oh my goodness. You want plugs? I got a million of them. So I'm interested in starting my own podcast with two good friends of mine. They are licensed pilots working on their instrument ratings. And the podcast is called A Girl's Eye View. So we have
Nice.
found that it's really important to talk about things that we've mentioned today, maybe like the less glamorous side of flight training, and some things that we've seen as women, three women, in our personal experience, just something that we wanted to talk about and share with anyone who's interested in listening to that. And I also have recently become involved with Women with Wings. I'm an ambassador for
Oh,
them,
okay.
really
Yeah.
nice organization. I'm a member of PAPA, the Asian Pilots Association, the LPA, Latino Pilots Association, and the 99s as well. And those have all been really amazing organizations that are doing amazing things in their community with their mission statement. It's almost overwhelming. It's something where I want to be a part of everything. So
Yeah.
I've had to pace myself a little bit
Yeah.
uh, and kind of choose right now what are the projects that I can contribute to the most, and then make a plan going forward. What could I do in the future? One of those projects is getting my private pilot license. So
Okay.
hoping for that really soon in the
Yeah.
next month. If you're my DPE, please, please go easy on me.
So you've got that locked in. You've got that date already locked in
I've
with
got that date
the
locked in, and do not ask me what date it is. Okay, I
okay.
will
All
not
right.
tell you.
Okay. We'll talk about that when we go cold mic. Okay. All right. Well, that's for the most part that's all I really had for you at this point. We'll kind of get ready to wrap it up with the closing segment that it's kind of fun to give the opportunity for people to get to know you a little bit, but it's a segment that I call clear for the option.
Oh,
So so it's kind of like some rapid fire kind of comparison, just so people can kind of get to know you a little bit better before we get ready to get you out of here. So yeah, so you
comparison?
ready?
Or is it like
Yeah.
you say a word and I say the first word that comes to mind? Is it like
No,
that?
no, it won't really be that. It'll just kind of be like I'll ask you, hey, this or that, and then I'll just kind of ask you your kind of some different things that
Oh
you
my
like,
Lord, I
some of your
love this.
some of your favorites. So hey, all the pressure in the world is on right now.
I'm walking in, hanging that picture, screwing it into the
Hey,
wall.
there you. Hey, see, there you go. All right.
Okay,
So
let's
with
do it.
that, you're cleared for the option. So So with your training, you prefer practicing stalls or engine out procedures?
Engine out.
Engine out. Okay. What's the favorite flight you've taken so far in your training?
Oh my goodness. Any flight that takes me from just before sunset to maybe the beginning of evening civil twilight, I think that
Mm,
time of day is just incomparable. Like you cannot match it.
yeah. Man, look at you dropping. Talk about proper terminology. She
Thank
dropped Civil Twilight on me. Okay. Okay. All right, technical. No, I'm joking. Let me stop.
you. What you don't know is my best friend just texted me that. No, I'm just kidding. She
Okay.
didn't. You need to say this. Okay.
Right. So, okay, I know it's supposed to be rapid fire, but I gotta ask. So I know you mentioned the Civil Twilight sunset, but is there a particular location where you've gone where you're like, wow, this is amazing?
My discovery flight was over the coast of Massachusetts,
Okay.
and I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Wow.
So probably the coast.
Okay. Man, you should go check out like Martha's Vineyard or something. Like Cape Cod, like you're close enough.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Cape Cod, Nantucket. We had some people flying out of the airport today going there
Wow.
because it was a gorgeous day. Cold,
That's
but
amazing. Yeah.
beautiful. Hmm.
I want to get up. That's bucket list for me. Sorry to take over your clear for the option segment, but I just had to throw that out there
I'm
as
like,
I
okay,
want
Vineyard or Nantucket? Which one do you? I'll just do it back to you.
Nantucket.
All
Yeah.
right,
I'll say
nice, good
Nantucket.
choice.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of goes in line with my next one that I got for you. What's a bucket list like fly-in destination for you?
I think Oshkosh would be a great one.
Mm. You want to fly into Oshkosh?
I think that would be so awesome.
You are brave, my friend.
No, I mean, I
Oh, you just mean like fly, like catch like a jet, like an
no fly
airline.
in. No, fly in.
Oh man, yeah, you gangster.
That's it. I'm a G, right?
Yo,
Come
straight
on.
G, because man,
That's it.
that's. Have you actually watched videos online to see like what that looks like, those procedures? Oh
I
man,
did.
okay,
Horrifying.
yeah. Like I said, you a thug. You got it though. Um, let's see here. Learning language, like a foreign language, or learning to fly.
I feel like that's not fair. Oh, that's so not fair.
I had to do it to you. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, hold on. Can I clarify? Learning a new language?
Yeah,
Well, at this point, I'll say learning to fly
learning to fly. Okay.
because I've got some under my belt. I'm kind of like satisfied for the time being.
Because yeah, you had what, four languages: English, French, Spanish, and
So I mean, it depends on what you mean by speak because different people can define that different ways, right? I mean, if you ask my students, they'll be like, I speak, German, and they can say hello and they say they speak it,
yeah,
which is fine. I am fluent in Spanish, I'm conversational in French, and I'm learning Polish. It's a struggle because that language is absolutely insane.
yeah.
So I would say it's like 3.5.
Three and a half languages. Okay. What's your favorite language to speak?
Oh my gosh. I mean, French just sounds so pretty,
Yeah.
but Spanish is, I think, really fun.
Hmm.
And in Polish, um, I don't know. I mean, Polish is like the language of my heritage, but I also think
Okay.
like it has so many consonants. That's really fun too. Why do I can I just say I don't want to pick I feel like a
You
student.
don't
I'm
want
like,
to pick?
one.
All right. So since this is called clear for the option, you can always go around. You're
I'm
gonna go
going
around on going around on that. All right.
I'm
Fair
going around.
enough.
Thanks.
Fair enough. um, favorite country you've ever visited?
Hungary.
Okay. Any particular reason why?
I was in Budapest with a very good friend of mine, and
Oh
it
wow.
was extremely romantic in the sense that it not like falling in love. I mean, I fell in love with the city, but um the atmosphere is very, very old. The food is amazing. It's very affordable for somebody from North America. The people are very kind. There's spas everywhere, thermal spas. It was
Nice.
very unexpected. It has history. It has a difficult language, which is really fun. And I had a really amazing experience there. There's something about it that you really do fall in love with.
That's amazing. Um, I don't know why it just came to me while you were kind of describing that, and I meant to say this in the beginning, but something that has been like bucket list for me forever actually is to become fluent in a foreign language, specifically Spanish. Um, so I
I'm
know
your girl.
that's what I'm saying. Like, look at how,
I'm a
look at that.
G.
Look at how like things just line up like that.
That's
So needless
right.
to say, I'm probably gonna be hitting you up a lot because yeah, we got to make that happen.
That's right.
I don't need Rosetta Stone. I got you now. So
But I'm Rosetta Stone. If you want to hire me on the side, please do.
hey, shameless plug. There we go. We love it. So for the last one, Pam, the last question I got for you is so again, as someone kind of coming into aviation with a previous career, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone coming into aviation if they're kind of looking to make a transition, maybe from one field to coming into aviation?
I don't know if this is maybe going to be oversimplified. It's going to be hard, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to
Okay.
take longer than you think, and that's okay. Other people are going to be better at it than you, and that's okay.
Hey,
I
there it
think
is.
just know it. Like it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean you're deficient. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you don't belong there doing something that you want to do. And also, you don't have to love every minute of it. There are people who love every minute of it. They're obsessed. And
No,
it's
they don't.
awesome to talk to
They're
those
lying.
people. And
They're
then I have to
lying.
go take a nap because I'm like, oh my God. It's how I like to talk about travel and language, right? Like there comes a point where I max out at aviation. So you don't have to love every minute of it in order to be successful and belong in aviation.
Nice. I love it. Great advice. And with that, you're cleared to land.
Thank you very much. Roger that.
Yeah, no, this was great, man. This was awesome. So yeah, with that, I definitely appreciate you once again for giving me and sparing me some of your time. This was fun. Hopefully, this was some value added. Hopefully, you enjoyed yourself. We might have to do something in the future too with the podcast. Maybe we can do like a collab or something like that.
So great. I have to have you on.
Oh yeah,
Everybody is listening right now. You're confirming that you will come on it.
that's it right there. Okay, on the spot.
Like,
No, we definitely got to do that for sure.
thank
Okay.
you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. No, it was my pleasure. And yeah, for anybody out there that wants to follow along with Pam, catch her on Instagram at Classroom to Cockpit. And of course, you can follow us at positive.rate.aviation on Instagram. So one more time, I'm your host, Ricky. Pam, thanks again. And we out.
We out.
Thank you. See ya.